everyone out there. So this is Sophie for TogetherWeRMondays once more. We had a little bit of a chaos over the last 2 weeks, so I'm very sorry for that. We had some miscommunication and whatever, but we're back to normal, and this week's question will be, when did you first realize that you had an eating disorder? And the topic of the week will be corresponding with that. It's about basically hitting rock bottom. So I chose it, so I'm trying to explain it now. I guess by hitting rock bottom, I mean a moment or a time or maybe a week or so when you felt like you really were at your lowest, and this is when you decided that maybe you cannot go on like this, or you first realized that actually this is destroying you and your life entirely. So kind of an experience similar to that, and not everybody reaches that point. A lot of people don't, and a lot of people actually wait for it. So I'm going to be talking about that in a minute. And first of all, I have actually never really reached that point, I have to say, because I kind of knew what I was doing, just like right when I started. I mean, I explained it in that basically I felt the need to have an eating disorder. Like, that was what my aim was. So I didn't really get to a point where I first realized I had an ED, or I first noticed I did, or I realized how much of a problem it actually is. I realized that it was going to become a problem from the moment I started, but I wanted that problem. So that was so I always kind of aimed for that rock bottom point as like my final goal, and I waited for it, and I tried to succeed on my path to it, basically, and that just got me deeper and deeper into the mess. And then eventually I realized that what I'm doing is destroying me, but it was not really a rock bottom point. It was more like the simple realization that it is not exactly smart to destroy everything you are and everything you have and everything you will be in the future to basically solve a problem that you cannot solve and that you are not responsible for. So I'm kind of not exactly, I mean, I haven't hit that point, as I explained, so I cannot really tell you how it must be when you really hit your all-time low. And I've only heard and read, and I've been told that it is a quite awful experience, because you basically, everything kind of collapses on you, like everything. And there is basically only 3 ways to go from there, like once you hit it. And I guess it's either starting recovery or just kind of wasting away and continuing with the eating disorder or with the illness, or basically, and some people do choose that, they actually choose suicide. And I am not promoting that in any way. I think there is always a better way out, and I think in such a dark moment, it may seem like there is no other way, and it may seem like there is no option, and dying is better than having to go on living like you do. But I promise, and most people would swear to you and cut their hand off for that it will get better. And there will be times when it will be a lot easier, and you will regret having ended your life, because you would regret it if you would have ended, whatever. Because there is always something to live on. You never know what's going to happen in your life. You really don't know, and you feel like you might not be able to go on like this right now, but maybe tomorrow, or maybe in a week, or maybe in a month, or maybe in a year, or maybe in 10 years, things will happen that will be absolutely amazing and you do not want to miss. You don't know what the plan is for your life. You have no idea whatsoever. So it's really, I mean, obviously I'm not talking about suicide here. This is not the topic, but suicide is never the right way out. It's never the easy way out either. So yeah, then basically there's those two options of like recovering or just kind of going on and wasting away in a way. And so, well, basically I would always encourage people to start recovery, of course, because once you hit that point, I think it is still the hardest step to take is that first step when you hit rock bottom and you realize, okay, now like I have to get help, otherwise I'm gonna die, like this is it now. And then to actually allow that and allow for that to happen, so then to actually go to someone and trust them and tell them about it, or to actually call a therapist, or to actually make an appointment at a treatment center, or whatever it is that you decide to do, is the hardest step. From there, it just gets better. I mean, there will be lapses and relapses and whatnot, but from there on, it just gets better, and you will not regret basically having taken that step into recovery, even though it might seem like the hardest one you've done so far. And it is, well, easier to slowly kind of like fall into an eating disorder, and then to kind of like take the step out within a day or so, or like you might make that decision that basically changes so much, is a little bit scary, and it can be, but it's actually not at all. Like once you've first decided that you will, it becomes so much easier, and finally you are able to receive the support that you need, and you can get to a better place. You always can. Yeah, and so I wanted to talk about some common misconceptions about this, like, yeah, basically path that I just described, because many people think that having an eating disorder is kind of like, you know, gets worse, you hit rock bottom, get treatment, gets up, and after a year the whole thing's done. Like, that's not at all how it goes. As most of the time it develops over years, and sometimes the behaviors itself do, but at least the problems they have manifested themselves, and sometimes, or really often, things like low self-esteem and constant comments and nagging and whatnot just kind of build up over time, and then when the actual eating disorder starts to kind of set in and you start to show symptoms in a way, that's just when it's kind of like the tip of the iceberg. But things have been going on for a really long time, and so it's not like this down. It's also, it might take years and years to actually get to a point where it's really basically destroying your life. You might feel rather comfortable having an eating disorder for quite a long time, and then eventually you hit that point. Or with some people, it just kind of goes downhill within like 3 or so months. They just kind of get really bad. Or some people just kind of have a constant disordered eating behavior over years and years and years. So it's not like there is this one path, and then also not like you go down and then you hit rock bottom and then you go up, because so many people wait for that hitting rock bottom moment to happen, and they're like, okay, I'm just gonna keep going like this, I'm just gonna lose a couple more pounds, or I'm just gonna like keep purging, and I'm just gonna keep eating until something bad happens. And the thing is, for your eating disorder, nothing is ever going to be bad enough. Nothing. That's the thing. You're never good enough in the eyes of your eating disorder. So if you faint once, no, fainting is not enough. You have to like pass out entirely. So, and then you pass out entirely, and then no, you haven't been admitted to a hospital, and then you get admitted to a hospital, and then, well, you didn't have to stay for like at least a day, so you didn't, like, not overnight, so then you have to stay overnight, and then, well, it was not a week, so obviously you can be more successful. And that's disordered thinking, because that's not at all how it is. Like, sometimes you reach that point, but many people never do. They keep going, and the eating disorder keeps telling them that you know, you can get lower or you can get worse, or there is sicker people than you, and you're not sick enough to recover, you're not sick enough to go into treatment, you're not, whatever, you're basically not worthy enough of getting treatment. And that is fatal. It's entirely, it's wrong, and it's just so not true. Like, it's your eating disorder telling that. I promise, it's not what is actually the fact. The thing is that you, at any point on having an eating disorder, even if you are in the very, very beginning stages, if there's just, you start to really worry about food, you know, you just keep thinking about it, you kind of start to obsess over it, that is a good point to seek recovery or to seek treatment. That's a perfectly good point. If you just kind of, maybe you just purge for the first time, you are really shocked, and this is a very good point to seek treatment. There is no such a thing as, you know, I'm not purging daily, so it's not bad enough, or whatever it is. And there's also no, once I get to that and that weight, I will be okay with recovery, because then I won't gain as much in recovery. No. Like, whatever it is, it's not, your eating disorder will always tell you that it's not good enough. So don't listen to it as much as you can, because that will kill you. Your eating disorder will kill you in the end. And so whenever you feel like there is a point where your eating behavior is affecting you negatively in any way, or your thoughts are bothering you in any way, or it keeps you from doing something you want, or maybe it causes you trouble, it causes you pain, it causes you distress in any way, and even after years and years of dealing with this, it is still a perfectly perfect point on a time to seek recovery. And so don't wait for a point that you would call rock bottom. Often you're just able to realize that it was once you look back at it, because once you start a recovery, you start to see the bad place that you came from, because then you start to see how much you lost and how much you gave up to that eating disorder. And but you just see it after you actually start a recovery. So I can only encourage you guys to just do not wait for this rock bottom point to hit you, because you're either way, you're gonna see it and realize that you were there in the very end. And if you do get to a point where you feel like this is not a way you can live like anymore and live like any longer, that is the point where you should not be scared to seek treatment, because the first step is the scariest one, but after that it just gets better and it gets easier, because you finally have the support. And it's not like, it feels like you may have to give up everything you achieved, and you have to give up everything that's you and everything you have and all your safety and your, well, basically the thing that your life is all about at that point. But recovery won't take you away. It will just make you stronger as a person, and it will make your life much more enjoyable, because not all of the bad, but most of the bad is just, you start to defeat it. That's an awesome feeling, and it gives you so much more strength, and realizing that you are perfectly worthy and valuable, and you deserve recovery at any point, at any time, whenever you feel like you need help. It is perfectly okay. There is no certain limit or label or a number of times you have to be binging or purging or not eating or losing or gaining that and that amount of pounds to deserve recovery. It's just not true. You always do. So, and then the question of the week kind of goes along with it. Like, when did you first realize you had an ED? And as I told you, I kind of realized from the very first moment. Like, I always strived to be able to say I have an ED. And at some point I was, and I don't know, I didn't care. really, because I still felt like I wasn't good enough. I still felt like I didn't have like the ED I wanted. It was definitely the wrong one because I have adenosis. I mean, obviously, you're not even worthy of having a proper diagnosis. So, well, I knew it from the very beginning, basically, but I still thought that, yeah, I had to hit that rock bottom point. That was what I thought, and I don't know, I never realized I had, from the moment I started, my first thought about, my first basically sort of thought from the very moment right now has been a rock bottom point because of this. So, yeah, that's all I can say to that. And so, I wish all of you guys good luck and a lot of strength and success in recovery. And I wish all of the ones who are struggling right now, and also the ones who are being really lucky right now, there is many people in the team who are, all of, yeah, best wishes and lots of love and luck and success and all that. And all of you guys out there, just stay strong, and you can perfectly do this, and you are so worthy and so awesome. And this eating disorder is the only thing that's bad and unworthy about you, basically, and it ought to be gone. So don't be afraid to go into recovery. So lots of love, and see you next week.